My wife didn't come home last night. She said she was going for drinks with coworkers after work. Said she'd be back by 9. By midnight, I was pacing the kitchen. At 2 in the morning, I called the local police, not to report her missing, just to ask if there'd been any accidents near downtown. There hadn't. She walked in at 3:41 a.m., hair still in place. Shirt barely wrinkled. Calm. "You're up?" she asked like I was the strange one. "Where were you?" "I told you. I was with the girls. My phone died. We ended up at Katie's and crashed there. I didn't want to wake you. Katie moved to Colorado 6 months ago. My wife knows I know that." I didn't say anything. Just looked at her until she turned away and went to bed. I sat on the couch until the sun came up. I didn't bring it up the next morning. She made coffee. I showered. We said nothing. There was a silence between us that used to feel like comfort. Now it felt like something growing. I didn't know what I believed, but I knew I didn't believe her. That day at work, I stared at my screen without reading a single email. I kept replaying the night in my head. Her calmness. The fake explanation. The lack of panic. It wasn't how a person acts when they care that you've been up all night thinking they might be dead. She texted me around noon. "Love you. Can't wait for the weekend." I stared at it for a long time before replying. Me too. That night, I watched her. She laughed too hard at a stupid joke on TV. She avoided eye contact when she talked about work. Her phone never left her hand. At one point, she left the room to take a call, said it was her sister. She talked for 3 minutes. Came back like nothing happened. She used to talk for hours with her sister. I didn't ask. I just noted it. Like logging data. Saturday, she said she had errands. Left around noon. Came back around 5 with one small bag of groceries and a bottle of wine we didn't need. I checked the car after she went inside. Passenger seat was adjusted further back. Someone taller. Not her. Not me. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't ready to know yet. But I was getting there. Sunday night, we sat in silence on the couch. Her eyes were on her phone, her fingers scrolling. I watched her reflection in the black screen of the TV. When she got up to go to bed, she didn't say goodnight. Just walked away. I stayed there another hour, staring. She didn't come home that night. And even though she was in the next room, I knew she was already gone. I started with the receipt. It was small, folded in half, stuffed deep in her purse under a pack of gum and 2 lip balms. I wasn't even looking for anything at first, just moving her bag off the counter so I could wipe it down. It fell open, and there it was. Friday night. A place on the east side. Not the bar she told me about. Not even close. 2 glasses of wine. 1 beer. 1 shared appetizer. 2 entrees. I stared at it longer than I should have. My first thought wasn't even rage. It was relief. Finally, something tangible. Something that said, "You're not crazy." I took a photo. Put it back exactly where I found it. Didn't say a word. That week, she was sweeter than usual. She texted more. Made dinner twice. Laughed at shows she normally ignored. She even suggested we plan a weekend getaway soon. Said we'd needed a reset. Guilt, I figured. The harder she tried, the more obvious it became. It wasn't affection. It was distraction. Her guilt dressed up as effort. Like she was trying to overcorrect. I played along. I smiled. I kissed her. I told her that sounded nice. I was calm, too calm, probably, but I didn't want her to feel alarmed. I needed more. Thursday night, I said I'd be working late. I left the office early and drove across town. Parked a few streets over from her office and waited. At 5:13, she came out. Alone. Got in her car. Didn't head home. I followed from a distance. She drove west, away from downtown, past the highway, into a neighborhood I'd never had reason to visit. Quiet. Middle class. Too clean. Too private. She pulled into a driveway. Didn't even hesitate. Got out. Walked up to the front door. Used a key. That was the moment. Everything slowed down. Not because I was shocked, because I wasn't. But because confirmation has weight. It lands on your chest and just sits there. Heavy. Final. I stayed in the car for 20 minutes. Didn't move. Just stared. Then I drove home. She walked in that night at 11:24. Smelled like someone else's cologne. Said they had a client dinner. That it went long. That she was exhausted. I nodded. Told her to get some sleep. Watched her brush her teeth and climb into our bed like it was nothing. I laid awake for hours. I wasn't hurt yet. I was studying her. I had facts now. I had time. The next day, I called in sick. I drove back to the house. Nobody answered the door. I waited. Same spot on the street. 2 hours. Then a man pulled in. Black car. Clean cut. Maybe mid-40s. She opened the door before he even knocked. He kissed her. Not a long kiss. Not passionate. Just routine. Familiar. A kiss that says, "We've done this before." I took photos. Zoomed in. Captured her face. She smiled. That night, she brought home Chinese food. Asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said sure. We watched some rom-com she picked. She leaned her head on my shoulder halfway through. I didn't move. She fell asleep like nothing was happening. Like we weren't already gone. She smiled when she lied. Not the big, dramatic smile, not the kind people post in vacation photos. Hers was quiet. A barely there upturn at the corners of her mouth, like she was trying to soften a blow I didn't know was coming. I started seeing it everywhere. When she said she was tired. When she said she missed me. When she said we should go away together sometime soon. Just the two of us. Every time she said something that should have meant closeness, that smile would flicker. Like her mouth betrayed her before her voice had the chance. Friday night, I waited until she went asleep. Then I checked her phone. She never used to lock it. Now it was always face down, passcode on. But that night she was too tired, or maybe just too comfortable, and forgot. The messages weren't under a man's name. Of course not. It was saved as Ava. But Ava didn't talk like a woman. Next time you wear that dress, don't plan on walking straight the next day. Still thinking about your mouth. You tasted like tequila and guilt. I took screenshots. Sent them to myself. Then erased the sent history. I didn't sleep. Just laid next to her and listened to her breathe. She reached for me once in her sleep, hand on my chest. I stayed still. Let her think I was dreaming. She never woke up. The next morning, I made breakfast. French toast. Bacon. Her favorite. She came into the kitchen wearing that same little smile. "You're sweet," she said. Kissed my cheek. "You looked peaceful last night," I said. She nodded. Slept like a rock. I almost laughed. I spent the rest of the weekend pretending. Playing the part. Watching her the way you watch someone when you know they're not who they say they are. Every laugh felt rehearsed. Every story had holes. She told me she might have to travel soon for work. Just a quick overnight thing. New client, new city. I asked if she wanted me to come. She hesitated, just for a second, then gave me that smile. "That's sweet," she said. "But it's probably just a dinner and a meeting. You'd be bored." That smile again. Like punctuation to her lies. Sunday night, she went to bed early. I sat in the living room, staring at my phone. I had the screenshots. The photos. The pattern. But I still didn't know what I was going to do with them. I wasn't ready to leave. I wasn't ready to confront her. I was just documenting. Like a man watching his house burn down, too numb to reach for the extinguisher. I went to bed around midnight. She stirred as I slid in beside her. "You okay?" she mumbled. "Yeah, just had to finish something." She rolled toward me, wrapped her arm around my waist, sided to my shoulder. I stared at the ceiling and memorized what her face looked like when she lied. It was supposed to be a conference. One night. Company-paid hotel. Client meetings. A few presentations. She made it sound routine boring, even. The kind of thing she'd flown to a dozen times before. She told me not to worry. Said she'd call me from the hotel. Said she'd be home Sunday afternoon. But something was off. She was too prepared. Too rehearsed. Every sentence came out like she'd practiced it. When I offered to drive her to the airport, she said no too early. She didn't want to bother me. When I offered to pick her up Sunday, she said she wasn't sure what time she'd land. Her company always booked flights last minute, she said. Nothing unusual. Nothing firm. Too many soft answers. Too much vagueness. Friday morning, I watched her leave. She rolled her suitcase down the driveway, kissed me quickly, said, "Love you, talk soon," and got into the Uber I'd already checked wasn't scheduled through her work account. I waited 5 minutes. Then I got in my car and followed. The Uber didn't go to the airport. It went to a rental house across town. A place tucked behind a row of trees, private and quiet. She got out, looked around like she was checking for someone, then went to the door and knocked. A man answered. Same one I'd seen before. They hugged. He took her bag. They kissed. Not like strangers. Not like coworkers. I took photos again. From behind the wheel. Then I drove a few blocks away and parked. She'd planned the whole thing. Told me she'd be in another state, when really she was 20 minutes from home. The thing about lying is it's not just about hiding what's true. It's about inventing a world and betting you'll never see the real one. I'd seen it. I stayed near the house all day. Watched the lights. Saw them leave once around 5, she in a dress I hadn't seen before, him in a jacket. I followed. They went to a restaurant downtown. Fancy. I didn't go inside. Just waited outside, watching through the window. They laughed. Shared a bottle of wine. She touched his wrist when she talked. Tilted her head back when she laughed. I didn't take photos this time. What was the point? That night, they didn't leave the house. The next morning, they didn't come out. By Sunday, I wasn't even angry. I was hollow. She texted me around noon. Flight delayed. Should be home by 6. Love you. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. At 5:30, she walked in the door. Hair freshly washed. Makeup light. She looked relaxed. Hey, she said, smiling. Miss me? I kissed her on the cheek. Told her I'd ordered Thai. That she should shower, get comfortable. She laughed. Said I was sweet. Then she went upstairs. That night, we ate together. Watched a show. She told me about the conference. Said the hotel was decent, the food was awful. Gave just enough detail to make it sound real. I nodded at all the right times. Asked a few questions. Let her talk. She never knew I was filling in the blanks. It happened on a Tuesday. One of those normal, forgettable evenings when nothing is supposed to matter. We were in the kitchen. I was rinsing dishes. She was leaning against the counter scrolling through her phone. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then she got a text and laughed. It wasn't a full laugh. More like a half-contained smirk she tried to swallow. But I saw it. The same way I'd seen her fake smiles, her small delays when answering questions, the way she'd pause before offering just the right lie. Then she made a mistake. She set the phone down, screen up. Maybe she thought it locked. Maybe she forgot I was even there. But for a moment, the world handed me something. And I took it. The message was from a number. No name. Just thinking about you last weekend. That dress. That little sound you make. Want more? Soon. I didn't flinch. Didn't move. I just finished rinsing the plate in my hand and turned to the fridge. She picked up the phone before I could see anything else, but it didn't matter. I'd seen enough. That night, I couldn't fake it. She climbed into bed, tried to curl into me like always. I shifted just enough to make it awkward. She didn't comment. She turned away instead. There was a silence in the room I hadn't heard before. Not the silence of a fight. Something worse. The silence of two people who knew a storm was coming and neither wanted to say it out loud. She fell asleep quickly. I didn't. The next day, I left work early. Sat in my car for an hour outside the rental house. It was empty. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. Gathering facts? Waiting for one more lie? Or maybe just hoping to catch a glimpse of the version of her that used to exist, the woman who looked me in the eye and meant it. But she wasn't there. That night she brought up marriage counseling. Out of nowhere. I've just been feeling off lately, she said. Disconnected. I want us to be better. We should talk to someone. It sounded good. Like something a person says when they want to fix things. But it wasn't real. It was a chess move. A preemptive strike. She felt the shift. Knew I was pulling back. And this was her way of staying ahead. I nodded. Said I'd think about it. Then I asked, do you love me? She looked surprised. Not because of the question, but because I asked it so directly. Of course, she said. Why would you ask that? And then the smile. Small. Just the corners. I memorized that one too. Friday, I followed her again. No conference this time. No client dinner. Just a lunch break that went 3 hours long. I watched from across the street as they met at a hotel. Not a nice one. Just clean enough. Cheap enough. He went in first. She followed 5 minutes later. She checked in under a different name. I wrote it down. Took more photos. Waited. They stayed for 2 hours. When she came out, she looked calm. Like she'd just had a coffee. Like she didn't just rip another piece out of me. That night she asked if I wanted to go away next month. Just the two of us. We could use it, she said. Get back to us. I said I'd check my schedule. But I already had other plans. She knew something had changed. I wasn't hiding it anymore. Not the coldness. Not the detachment. Not the way I looked at her like she was a stranger who had somehow stolen my wife's face. But I still hadn't said it out loud. Not the word. Not the truth. Not what I'd seen. Not what I knew. I hadn't accused her. I hadn't even asked a question. And maybe that's what made her crack. It was Sunday morning. She came into the living room holding 2 mugs of coffee. She offered me one. I took it. She sat across from me. Crossed her legs. Exhaled. Are you okay? I looked at her. I'm fine. She nodded slowly. We haven't really connected lately. I waited. I feel like you've been pulling away, she added. I don't know if it's work, or us, or something else. But I feel it. I took a sip of coffee. Yeah, I've been thinking about some things. She looked nervous. Not panicked. just uncertain, like someone stepping onto ice and listening for the first crack. Is there something you want to say to me? I asked. She hesitated. Then she started talking. It wasn't a confession. It was a rewrite, a narrative shift, a preemptive strike dressed up as vulnerability. She said she felt distant, said she was confused, said she sometimes questioned things, our marriage, her identity, who she was becoming. She used words like lost and fog and reconnection. She cried a little. Not much. She didn't mention him. She didn't mention hotel rooms or fake names or texts from numbers with no names. She didn't mention slipping off wedding rings or moaning in someone else's bed. She made it sound like maybe she flirted. Maybe she enjoyed attention. Maybe it didn't go further. But we both knew that wasn't true. I let her talk. I didn't argue. Didn't push. Didn't even interrupt. Just nodded. Asked questions. Let her feel like she was leading the story. And while she talked, I studied her. The way her hands moved. The way her eyes flicked away when a sentence went too close to the truth. The pauses between words. The fear underneath the performance. When she finished, I said, "Thank you for telling me." And I meant it. Because now I knew exactly how far she'd go to protect her version. The next few days were different. She was lighter. Like the weight had shifted onto me. She smiled more. Touched me more. Sent me texts in the middle of the day just to say she loved me. It was almost cruel, watching her rebuild something I knew was still burning. Wednesday night she made dinner from scratch. Lit candles. Put on music. We ate together like strangers playing house. After dinner, she pulled me into the bedroom. Said she missed me. Said she wanted to be close. I went with her. Let her touch me. Let her try to erase guilt with skin. But it didn't feel like healing. It felt like cover-up. That night, after she fell asleep, I went downstairs and opened my laptop. Created a folder. Titled it August. I added the screenshots. The photos. The names. The timestamps. Then I started writing. Everything. From the beginning. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. Just because I needed a record. Something real. Something that didn't smile when it lied. Friday afternoon, I went to the rental house. Nobody was there. But I knew they'd been. A wine glass on the table. A coat draped on a chair. A faint smell that didn't belong to me. I sat on the front steps for an hour. Then left. That night she said she wanted to renew our vows. She looked into my eyes and said she wanted a fresh start. I looked back and said, okay. And all I could think was, what would we even be renewing? It happened in the middle of the night. One of those dream-heavy, half-awake moments where the world blurs. She was sleeping beside me, breathing soft and even. My back was to her. I wasn't sleeping. And then she said his name. Not loud. Not like a shout. Just a breath, barely there. But I heard it. A man's name. One I didn't recognize. Whispered like a prayer. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Just let it hang there in the dark while every part of me absorbed it. I replayed it 100 times in my head before the sun came up. The next morning, she acted normal. Made coffee. Played music. Danced around the kitchen like she was 16 again. Like she hadn't just confirmed everything I'd feared in her sleep. She kissed me twice that morning. I let her. Every part of me wanted to ask her what the name meant. But I didn't. I needed to be sure. Not just emotionally sure, evidentially sure. So I dug deeper. I took her phone while she showered. Took it to my office, opened her backup cloud on my desktop. I'd guessed her password months ago. Hadn't used it, not until now. There were photos. They weren't pornographic. Nothing explicit. But they were them. Her and him. His hand on her knee. Her laughing into his neck. A selfie in a bathroom mirror with her shirt half off, her wedding ring visible in the foreground. A file folder with dates. Places. One was labeled, Napa. We'd never been to Napa. Another, J. Weekend. That must have been his name. The one she whispered. There were more. Hotel confirmations. Calendar invites forwarded to a private email I'd never seen before. A fake Gmail address. I checked the recovery number. Hers. Always hers. I opened a draft that had never been sent. I hate how much I want you. Even when I'm next to him, I can still feel you in my mouth. She wrote that to him, but she didn't send it. I stared at that line until the words blurred. Then I copied everything. Emailed it to myself. Printed screenshots. Added it all to the folder. I didn't feel angry. Not in the fire-breathing way movies show it. I felt surgical. Precise. That evening, she said she wanted to go for a walk. Clear her head. I said okay. Told her I'd stay in and cook. She smiled, grateful. When she left, I followed. She didn't go far. just to a park near our place. But she didn't walk. She sat on a bench. 10 minutes later, he showed up. He didn't kiss her this time. Just sat. They talked. I couldn't hear it, but I didn't need to. She laughed once. Looked at him the way she used to look at me, when we were still real. Then she leaned into him. Let him put his hand on her back. He rubbed slow circles. She closed her eyes. I took photos. From behind a tree. From across the field. I documented everything. That night, I put a single page on her pillow. It was a printout. Her and him. Park bench. Her eyes closed. His hand on her back. She walked into the room, saw it, froze. She didn't speak. Just stared at it. Then at me. Then back again. Who is he? I asked. She didn't answer. Not at first. Then, finally, he doesn't mean anything. Then why'd you say his name in your sleep? That got her. She started crying. Not the fake kind. Real tears. Shaking. She sat on the bed. Tried to speak. I let her. She told me his name. Jeremy. Said it started 6 months ago. Said she didn't mean to fall into it. Said he made her feel seen. I asked, what did you think I was doing all this time? Looking through you. She said no. Said I was a good man. Said I didn't deserve it. I agreed. Then I told her to leave. She said we should talk. Work through it. Try therapy again. Try anything. I said, you already tried everything. You just didn't include me. She left that night. Took a bag. Didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask where she was going. I already knew. The silence in the house the next morning wasn't peace. It was residue. Smoke. Like a room where something had burned. I sat on the couch and didn't move for 2 hours. Didn't eat. Didn't turn on the TV. Just stared. Then I got up. Opened the folder. Labeled it again. Final. Then I started writing a letter. Not to her. To myself. Because something in me still needed to explain how a man like me could live with a lie like that for so long. I thought I'd feel relief. I thought that once the truth was out, once I'd told her to leave, once I had my proof and the house to myself, I'd feel something close to freedom. Like breathing after being underwater too long. But all I felt was space. Empty space. Everywhere. No footsteps upstairs. No door slamming shut when she left for work. No scent of her perfume trailing behind when I walked into a room. Just the slow tick of the wall clock and the low hum of a fridge that no longer needed to cool anything for two. It was a kind of silence I wasn't ready for. Not because it was loud. Because it was honest. And that scared me more than her lies ever did. I started working from home full-time. My manager didn't push back. He probably heard the shift in my voice. The way I spoke slower now. Shorter sentences. No one asked what was wrong. I think they already knew it wasn't work. My brother called. Twice. I let both go to voicemail. My mother texted. I sent a thumbs up. My friends, the few I still had, offered beer and football and distraction. I ignored them. None of them could help. Because none of them had lived through what I had. None of them had loved someone so fully, so long, that they forgot who they were without them. And then had to start remembering in the worst possible way. The house felt bigger. Or maybe I felt smaller. I walked the same paths each day. Bedroom to kitchen. Kitchen to office. Office to couch. Sometimes I stopped in the hallway outside the guest room and just stood there. She never liked that room. Too cold, she said. I slept there now. I couldn't bring myself to touch our bed. Not after hearing her say his name in it. One night, I found her toothbrush still in the holder. I threw it away. Then I dug it out 5 minutes later and rinsed it off. I don't know why. Maybe because getting rid of it felt too final. Or maybe because I was still waiting for a part of me to wake up and say it didn't happen. That I imagined it all. That it was a story I read online, not a life I lived. But the photos were still in the folder. And her voice was still in my head. I started talking to myself. Not full conversations. Just small things. Like, you don't need to check her phone anymore. Or, you're not crazy. Some days I believed it. Most days I didn't. I wondered where she was. Not just physically. Emotionally. Mentally. Did she miss me? Did she regret it? Was she sleeping well? Laughing like she used to? Holding him the way she once held me? I hated that I cared. I didn't eat much. Lost weight. My belt started on a different notch. My shirts hung looser. I caught my reflection one day and barely recognized the man looking back. Not because he was thinner. Because he looked older. Like betrayal aged me. Like truth took something I didn't know I'd been holding on to. I went back to the park once. Sat on the same bench where I saw them sit. I don't know what I was expecting. Closure? Echoes? But the bench was just a bench. The wind was just wind. There was an older couple a few benches down. She was feeding a small dog. He was looking at her like she was still the best thing that had ever happened to him. I watched them for a long time, not out of envy, but out of curiosity, wondering if we'd ever looked like that. If someone had ever seen us from a distance and thought, they look happy. Later that week, I went to the grocery store and saw a woman from behind who looked like her. Same hair, same walk. My chest tightened before my brain caught up. When she turned around, it wasn't her. But for those 2 seconds, I felt everything at once: hope, dread, anger, longing. I left my card in the aisle and walked out without buying anything. One morning, I made coffee and opened my laptop. The folder was still there. I clicked it open, went through every file. Slowly, patiently, like I was reading a manual on how to dismantle a life. Then I selected them all and deleted them, not because I forgave her, because I was tired of remembering her on someone else's terms. That afternoon, I finally answered my brother's call. We talked for an hour. About nothing. About everything. I didn't cry. He didn't push. Just let me talk. And it felt like the first step back toward the surface. That night, I sat outside with a blanket, watching the wind move through the trees. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was being crushed from the inside. I just felt quiet. Not good. Not bad. Just quiet. It started with a missed call. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. Left no message. I let it go. But something about it stuck. I checked the area code. Local. Could have been anyone. Could have been her. I didn't want it to be her. I also didn't want it to not be. A few hours later, I got a text. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but can we talk? I stared at it for 5 minutes. Screen dimmed twice. I didn't respond. Another one followed. Please. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. That night, I lay in bed, not ours, still the guest room, phone on the nightstand, screen down. I thought I'd sleep. Instead, I kept hearing her voice saying my name, not an apology, not in desperation, just saying it. I imagined how many times she'd said it to him, whispered it in hotel rooms, spoke it through the phone when she told me she was working late. How many lies had my name under them like a caption? It took me 3 more days to respond. Say what you need to say. The reply came fast. Can I call? I didn't answer. I waited. Then the phone rang. Her voice hit me like the smell of a place you haven't been in years. Familiar. Wrong. Dangerous. She asked how I was. I said nothing. She asked if I hated her. I said, do you want me to? Silence. Then, I miss you. I almost laughed. Almost. She told me she wasn't seeing him anymore. That she'd ended it. That it wasn't what she thought it was. That she'd been confused. I said, you weren't confused when you lied. When you made hotel reservations. When you made me a stranger in my own home. She cried. I stayed quiet. She said she'd made a mistake. I asked, which one? She didn't answer. She asked if we could meet. I said, for what? She said, closure. I said, you already closed it. You just didn't hear the door shut. She kept talking. Told me about her childhood. Her fears. Her guilt. Things she said she never told anyone. I listened. Not because I cared. Because I wanted to hear how far she'd go to be forgiven. She asked again if I'd see her. I said I'd think about it. And I did. 2 days later, we met. Public place. A park. Same one where I'd seen her with him. She looked tired. Smaller. Like someone had turned down her brightness. She smiled when she saw me. I didn't smile back. She said thank you for coming. I nodded. She said she'd understand if I never wanted to speak again. I said, then why are we speaking? She didn't answer that one either. We talked. Or rather, she did. I let her. She said she still loved me. I said, you don't betray people you love. She said she didn't know how to fix it. I said, it's not broken. It's gone. She cried again. Quieter this time. She asked what I wanted. I said, I wanted to not be here. But I am. She nodded. Said she was sorry. For everything. I believed that part. Not because she earned it. Because it was too late for it to matter. We didn't hug. We didn't touch. When we parted, she said, take care of yourself. I said, I am. Then I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I slept in our bed. And I didn't think of her once. But I dreamed. Not of her. Of me. Of the version of myself that hadn't been broken. That still laughed without checking if anyone was watching. I woke up with my heart racing. Not because of fear. Because of momentum. I went for a run that morning. First time in months. Muscles protested. Air felt heavier. But I kept going, block after block, past streets we used to walk together, past the diner where she once said she loved me over coffee, past the bookstore I used to browse alone. I wasn't running from her. I was running toward whatever was left. I got home and opened a new folder on my computer, titled it, Rebuild. No files in it yet. But it was a start. You don't really start over. People say that, like there's a reset button you press and suddenly your past disappears behind you in a tidy little box labeled Lessons. But the truth is, it stays with you. The pain, the silence, the things you almost said, the things you should have, the lies you tried to forget, the voice that still shows up in dreams. It doesn't go away. It just gets quieter. 3 months since the day I walked away. She hasn't called again, hasn't texted, no emails, no letters. Her silence now feels like a kind of answer, the most honest one she's ever given me. The first few weeks were strange. Everything felt haunted. I'd reach for a mug and expect it to be in the wrong place because she'd moved it. I'd walk into a room and feel like I was interrupting something that wasn't there. I kept waiting for a voice, a scent, a shadow. None came. Then slowly, I started noticing the things that were only mine. My habits, my rhythms, the way I liked my shirts folded, the playlists I actually enjoyed, the food I cooked when I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I started to feel like a person again, but not the same when I was before her. The folder titled Rebuild has files now. Photos from hikes I took by myself, journal entries, old poems I never thought I'd open again, a business plan I started sketching out in the middle of a sleepless night. None of it perfect, none of it polished, but it's mine. I've been reading more, running more, eating better. I sleep through most nights. I talk to my brother twice a week. I even went on a few dates. The first one was a disaster. I wasn't ready. She was kind. I wasn't. The second was better. Just drinks. We talked about music and favorite cities and childhood movies. We didn't talk about marriage, or betrayal, or ghosts. That felt like progress. The third one asked me if I'd ever been in love. I said, once. The kind that makes you forget your own name. She smiled. Didn't push. One night, I found something I hadn't seen before. In my junk drawer, under old receipts and expired coupons, a letter. Not dated. Not signed. But I knew the handwriting. Hers. It must have been written before she left. Maybe meant to be given to me. Maybe not. I read it 3 times. She wrote that she hated herself. That she thought I deserved someone who could be real. That she didn't know how to be loved without breaking it. She said she never meant to choose him over me, only chose the version of herself she could pretend to be with him. It didn't change anything, but it explained everything. I still think of her sometimes. Not in anger. Not even with longing. More like when you touch a scar and remember how it happened. Some days it aches. Most days, it doesn't. I don't replay the lies anymore. I don't scan through our photos or reread the messages or wonder what I missed. I don't punish myself for trusting her, for loving her, for believing that love was enough. That's the part that took the longest, forgiving myself. I ran into one of her friends last week, at a bookstore. She didn't say much, just that Sarah had moved out of town. New job, fresh start. Good for her, I said. She asked how I was doing. Better, I told her. Getting there. She nodded, smiled a little, then said something that stuck with me. You always saw her clearly. She just didn't know how to be seen. Maybe that was true. Maybe some people aren't built for honesty. Maybe they crave it, but fear what it demands. Maybe she loved the version of herself she could be around him, or the version she thought he saw. But I saw her too. The good, the bad, the silence. And I still chose her, until she chose someone else. There's a chair on my back porch now. I sit there some mornings with coffee. Just sit. No phone. No noise. Just me and the day starting again. And I think, this is what beginning feels like. Not a new chapter. A whole new book. One I get to write. She's not the last page. Just the part that taught me how to hold the pen. And this time, I'm writing for myself. Not to be loved. Not to be enough. Just to be honest. One morning, I saw her car. I was downtown grabbing coffee. And there it was. Same make, same dent on the rear bumper. For half a second, I froze. Thought maybe she'd come back. That she'd turn the corner, and there we'd be. 2 people standing in the aftermath of something neither of us finished. But it wasn't her. Just a stranger getting into a car that no longer belonged to her in my head. Still, my hands shook. Grief doesn't leave. It waits. I started painting again. Badly. But enough. I hung one of them in the hallway. Big streaks of red and ash gray, like storm clouds trying to peel themselves apart. It doesn't mean anything to anyone but me. And that's enough. This is what survival looks like. Not triumph. Not victory. Just breath. Just stillness. Just forward.